Let's talk about sensuality versus sexuality and why both are important parts of the conversation. Sensuality means of the senses. We have eight senses: touch, taste, smell, sight, sound, interoception, which is our bodily cues, hunger, thirst, emotion. Then we have proprioception, which is our ability to locate where we are. Where's my arm? Where's my leg? So it's this internal sense of location. And the vestibular senses, which is balance and movement detection. So, of the senses means I am connected to my sensory landscapes within me. I'm feeling the wind brush my teeth. I'm feeling the grass tickle my bare feet as I walk. I'm hearing the bird song. I'm tasting the delicious food that I'm eating. I'm noticing all the patterns and colors that I appreciate in the garden, right? So, this is being very sensuous. When I'm aware of where I am and where I'm located in my body, proprioception, that's another sensuousness. When I'm aware of how I'm moving and the acceleration, deceleration, rotations of my body, that's accessing my vestibular sensuality. And then with interoception, that's our emotional literacy, our emotional awareness, and bodily cues. Even do I need to go to the toilet? Am I too hot, too cold? All of that. Sensuousness, connection to the eight senses. Sexuality, in its like crudest, most basic form, is physical intimacy with another person. So some kind of physical giving and taking that's consensual. I see sexuality in a much more spiritual light, for want of a better word, that sexuality is this allowing of the outer world to penetrate us in any form, including the breath. I talk quite a bit about the oxygen that's being photosynthesized in our ecosystem from vegetation. That oxygen is coming into my body and nourishing my cell, every cell in my body. And then I'm giving back carbon dioxide for those same plants to use in their photosynthesis process. So there's a give and a take between me and the ecosystem and the photosynthesizing world. And there is something far beyond human physical intimacy, where I believe the sexuality conversation really extends into a much bigger concept of how life itself can be our lover. We can be in love with the world and allowing every single moment to penetrate us and to stimulate our eight senses. So it's a sensuous process, but there's also something bigger than that, that it's not just me. It's not just me and my senses. I'm in relationship to the outer world. So that music I'm listening to, someone's written that music, someone's performed that music, and it's now coming into my body to massage me and to create pleasure for me, something for me to be aroused by, to open up and tune into. So I think sexuality is the way our inner world and outer world dance. I call it the divine exchange, that we are receptive to the outer world tickling us. We're receiving it. We're allowing ourselves to be connected. And that is heavily, heavily includes sensuality. But to some extent, I think sensuality is more of that journey of self-exploration of what's going on in my inner world, what's here and now, and just really having that beautiful contained experience with oneself. And I think that's where we start. And that's a huge part of what I teach people to become masterful of, to have mastery of your inner world and your eight senses, to know your body intimately so that you can connect into yourself, empty everything from the outer world that doesn't belong to you. Know your boundaries. Where do you end? Where do I begin? And to locate yourself so you know exactly who you are and where you are 24/7. The flip side of this, to not have sensuality, is to be scattered, to not know where your attention is, to be confused, exhausted, heavy, numb, to be constantly looking for caffeine and sugar and anything from the outer world to sort of slap us into wakefulness because we're feeling like we're losing ourselves, disconnected. When we're not connected to our sensuality, and I would call sacred sexuality, we end up on this goose chase of the external trap where we're seeking some kind of external elixir to help us feel better. There's an internal void, no one's home, we're feeling malnourished and isolated, so we look outside. We Google for answers, we try and find a hot date, we try and get more delicious food or drink or drugs or whatever. We're looking outside of ourselves. And that includes sexually. Sometimes people are looking outside of themselves sexually for that satisfaction, contentment, and nourishment. But actually, it all starts in this place of sensuality with oneself, the inner space, the inner world, that inner contentment, inner satisfaction, inner nourishment. It comes from connection to my own sensation. The sexual piece of sharing it is, am I receptive to letting the outer world in? Can I feel my body while I'm in relationship, for example, with my husband? Or am I leaving myself and I'm more worried about him? And that can mean I'm out of my body, I'm not connected to my sensuality, and perhaps I'm entertaining, performing, or things are becoming transactional or like a service exchange, in which case there's not that internal connection, nourishment, satisfaction, or contentment. And that's where we have the void, that things just don't feel satisfying. We're eating, but we still feel hungry. We're drinking, but we still feel thirsty. We're having sex, but we still don't feel that deep, loving, intimate connection, right? So there's a difference between doing things and actually slowing down and feeling the experience fully. You know, we can smell a rose and we can really smell a rose. Like to really fully let the rose penetrate our experience and be all of our attention, taking it in, marinating, absorbing it. So, sensuality is that connection to our eight senses with loving attention and full attention. Sexuality is how we're in relationship with this divine dance with the outer world, may or may not include another person, and may or may not include physical touch. So, I really use that term very broadly. I also feel like sexuality is our portal into the sacred and divine, that as we get those waves of arousal and intensity of neural firing with orgasmic waves and pleasure, things happen to our brain and to our hormones and neurotransmitters that we access states of consciousness that really take us to places of connecting with the sacred and divinity. If we have a big enough window of tolerance, and if we have that capacity to surrender into the unknown and into mystical states. So, sexuality has a very powerful connection to the mystical, to the sacred, to the divine, so much more than a physical exchange or transaction. These are all important parts of our wholeness and being fully human, that we're not objects bumping around, doing things to each other. We're living, receptive beings constantly in this reciprocal process of giving, taking, allowing, and receiving, that there is this circular dance between us and all beings. Interconnectedness and reciprocity are ways of life, and I believe they are absolutely fundamental to our wholeness and to our healing. To join more of these conversations and to learn more, visit seekingbalance.com.au. I have a free community you can join, and I have my Rocksteady community for those of you with chronic symptoms or chronic pains. And I have my Sensing Ground community for those of you wanting to fully explore sensuality and your body as your compass. So I'll see you in there, and a bye for now.